Hey guys, this is Mr. H. Hey, I'm going to do a video on how to generate a linear regression and also find the correlation coefficient and how to round those coefficients to the proper decimal place. I'm going to do 2 or 3 examples and hopefully that'll be enough to help you kind of going forward. Here are some of the things that we're going to be using. First thing, now this was something that I created and I passed out to the class. This document basically shows you how to go through and come up with the linear regression and correlation coefficient using your calculator. Basically, you can only use your calculator to come up with the regression and correlation coefficients. You can't do it by hand. There's no way to do it without a calculator. So this is one of the documents that I created. The other thing that you're going to need is you're going to need something like this. This basically shows you what the correlation coefficient is. If it's a negative dollar or a positive dollar, it's considered strong. If it's 0, it's considered weak. And basically, the closer you get to 0, the weaker it gets. The closer you get to $1, the stronger it is. So you need to know this in order to answer questions about the correlation coefficient. And then this is something that you will need in order to round. This is a skill that you should have learned in probably the 5th or 6th grade. But a lot of students have struggled with the rounding part. So I'm going to go through some examples on how to round as well. But let's jump into this. So first thing, this is the document that we're starting with. It says we've got this coffee manager. Her name is Erica. She collected data on the daily high temperature and the revenue from coffee sales. She did it for 9 days, so she has 9 days worth of data. And she wants to come up with a linear regression that tells her what the relationship is between the coffee sales and the high temperature. And so when it says linear regression, that means you got to come up with a linear regression. It doesn't matter what the data looks like. You may think it looks like a quadratic or an exponential, but if they say linear regression, then that means you're going to do a linear regression. No questions asked. And when we round it, we're going to round all of our data or our numbers to the nearest integer. And then we're going to find the correlation coefficient, which is R, and we need to round that to the nearest 100. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So very first thing you're going to do is we need to grab the calculator. So let me do that. So I'm going to go get the calculator, and I've already entered the data because I don't want to do that on the camera, showing you, wasting time, showing you how to enter this. Most of y'all, if not all of you, know how to do this. So I entered the 9 days of data. I called my X value the temperature. I called the Y variable the coffee sales. This is the independent variable. Temperature is independent, and the dependent variable is coffee sales. So like now, I'm going to show you how to do this 2 ways. Originally, in the beginning of the year, I showed you guys how to come up with regression equations doing it this way. I would tell you to go back to the home screen, then you would go to this data and statistics page, and then down here at the bottom, you would enter the X value, which is temperature. And then you would come over here for the Y value, which is coffee sales. Now, and here is what the data looks like. Now, it's not a straight line, it's not a curved line, but this is going to be linear. So you would go menu 4, 6, 1. And here is the equation right here. Y equals a negative 58.26, blah, 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 X plus 6182.19, right? Excuse me. Now, they want us to round this to the nearest integer. So that's what we have to do. Once we round it to the nearest integer, that's the equation. One other thing, they want us to put this as a function. So they want this f of t, not y equals x. They want it as f of t. So I'm going to show you that as well. So very first thing, we're going to need let me go over here and kind of get this set up so I can show you what we need. First thing we're going to need is we're going to need to put these numbers on. So I'm going to do a negative 58.2638. That's as far as I want to go on that one. So let me pull my iPad up. So now I put that number on here. a negative 58.2638. And there's more numbers, but we're supposed to round this to the nearest integer. So the integers start with the ones place. Anything that has decimals is not an integer. So we have to start here. So what you would do is we're looking at the 1. So you're going to go up to the 8, and you always look to the number to the right. And the number to the right is 2. Now, because that number is less than 5, we would just drop all of this other stuff. And this would be our integer rounded to the nearest integer. So it's just going to be a negative 58. So what I would do, my first part is I'm going to, gosh, all of this is popping all around. I'm going to, now this is going to be f of t. Let me erase that. This is going to be f of t. So it's going to be f of t, not y. And that first part is going to be negative 58. And instead of putting an x next to it, we're going to put the t, because that's the x variable, right? And now I got to find the second part, the y-intercept part. So now I'm just going to go back to the calculator, and I'm going to get that second number right here. It's 6182. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put that number on the on my rounding sheet, and then I'm going to round it to the nearest integer. So let me do that. It's going to be 6,182.1990. That's enough. All right. So let me bring that up and show you what that looks like. So here's the number that I have. It's 6,000. I'm going to click on it. 6,182.1990. Again, we want to round it to the nearest integer. So that's going to be the ones place. So you look to the right. Since that's a 1, we're just going to drop all that stuff. We don't change anything. We don't change anything to the left of the decimal. So I'm just going to get rid of all of this stuff, because it's that 1 was less than 5. So you just drop it. So here's going to be the second part. It's going to be 6,182. So now I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to put that in here. It's going to be 6,182. So that is the function. That's the linear regression function. And now we're done with that. That's all we needed to do. We rounded it to the nearest integer. Now we need to find the correlation coefficient. Now, I'm going to show you something. We've got to use the calculator in order to do this. So here, in order to come up with a correlation coefficient, there's only one way to do that. You have to go from the spreadsheet. So you're going to do menu. It's this correlation coefficient is a statistic. So you're going to go to statistics, stat calculations, and then you're going to go to this linear regression. You got to tell the calculator, what did you put the X values? That was the temperature column. What did you put the Y values? That was coffee sales. And then you just press OK. Now, this will give you all of the stuff that you need. We already found the coefficient of the X term. We found the Y, and we rounded that to the nearest integer. Now, we need this R value. That's what we're looking for. So what we have is we have R is equal to a negative 0.9441. We're supposed to round this to the nearest hundredths place. So, so here's what we're going to do. Let me go get my spreadsheet or my rounding thing again. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to, you may not, you're supposed to know this rounding. So this is negative 0.9441. So that's enough. So let's pull up the iPad. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so here is the number. They want us to round to the hundredths place, which is here. So we look at the 4, and then you always look to the right. If this number is 4 or less, you just drop those numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of these numbers to the right. And so if I round it to the nearest hundred, this is what it's going to be. So on my paper, it's just going to be rounded to the nearest, there it is. It's rounded to the nearest 100. So R equals a negative 0.94. Now, the second question, once you come up with the correlation coefficient, they ask, does this indicate a strong relationship between the variables? Explain your reasoning. So now, in order to answer this, we have to use that correlation coefficient document. So here's where our 94 would be. It would be, it's a negative, so we're going to be over here. It's about 94 cents. That's pretty close to $1. So it is a strong relationship, but it's a negative correlation. So what you would say now is you would say, yes, it indicates a strong negative, that's supposed to be negative, come on, negative correlation. And the reason is, you would say, because these two variables have a negative correlation. When the temperature goes up, and it gets hot, the coffee cells is going to go down, right? Who wants to drink hot coffee on a really hot day? And who wants to drink cold coffee on a really cold day? So these work in opposite directions. That's why it's a negative correlation. So you would say, yes, it indicates a strong correlation because the variables work, they work together, but they're working in negative and opposite directions. Now, if you put this, you get +2 for this, you get +1 for this, and you get 1 for your explanation. And that's it. So that's how you come up with the correlation. That's how you come up with the equation. I'm going to do one more example. I was going to do 3, but it's taken a little bit, and I don't want to make this video too long. So let's do the next one. All right, so what we have here is we have, let me go, and I don't want to save this. Nope. So let's go recent. We're going to go for 2 here. Now, let's go to the iPad. Here we go. Now, it says the table below shows the number of math classes missed during the school year for 9 different students, and it also shows their final exam scores for the end of the year. And what they're basically saying is that there's going to be, is there a relationship between missing classes and your final exam score? And so they did data, they took data from 9 different students, and they want us to write, again, they want us to write a linear regression, and they want us to round it to the nearest 100. Then they want us to find the correlation coefficient to tell us how strong the relationship is between these. And they also want us to round that to the nearest 100. So let's do that. So again, you go to your calculator, you go from the home screen, you go to the spreadsheet, but I don't want to use this one. So let's delete this page because I've already got it. All right, so I've got the scores. I call the X value the missed days, and I call the Y value the final score. I entered all 9 students, and now I'm going to, in this case, I'm not going to do the blue dots. I'm just going to do everything from here because everything that I need is going to be on the spreadsheet. So I go to menu, I go to statistics, I go to stat calculations, then I go to number 3, linear regression, because that's what we're doing. And from here, I'm going to say the missed number of days is the independent variable, or the X, and the score, final score, is the Y. And then I just press OK. Now, everything that I need is in here. So here is the correlation. This is the coefficient of the X term, and I have to round that to the nearest 100. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that. I'm just going to write that number on my iPad, and then I'm going to show you how I would round it. Actually, let me do that on the rounding chart, since that's the way I've been doing it. I think that's good. So I'm just going to write these numbers. So it's a -2.8 1, 1, 7, that's enough. So if I go here and look at this, at the number, we're rounding to the hundreds place. So that would be this column. So I look at the 1 and I look to the number to the right. And since this number is less than 5, I'm just going to drop everything to the right. And so this is what my number, my final rounded number is going to be. It's going to be a negative 2.81. So I go over to this, and that's what I'm going to put. Let me get my, so what I have here is it's going to be y equals a negative 2.81. Put my x there. In this case, we're using x and y. They didn't tell us to put it in function notation. Now I got to get that second part. So let me go back to the calculator and see. So the b is the second part. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to my, I'm going to use that rounding sheet, and I'm going to round using that. So what I have is 97.5540. That's enough. All right. So now I'm going to pull up my my iPad, and there's the number. And they want us to round to the nearest 100. So that means this number here. So I'm looking at that number. I go to the right. This is less than 5. So that means I can drop all of this stuff to the right. Whatever to the right. And this is my final number, $97.55. So I go back to my, where is it? It's right here. I'm going to put $97.55. Now that's my equation. I've rounded it. Everything looks good. Now they want me to do the correlation coefficient, and they want me to round that to the nearest 100. So let's go and look for that. So you go to this, you go to the calculator. It's always the R. So they told us that it's 97. It's 0.97008. So let's go to the rounding sheet again. So let me write those numbers down. Come on here. Clear the ink. So it's going to be negative 0.9700. That's enough. That's enough. So if I pull up the iPad, you can see the number is a negative 0.9700, and then there's more numbers over here. We don't care about those other numbers. We're rounding it to the nearest 100 place, which is right here. So we're looking at the 7. We go to the number to the right, and it's 0. So that means that that's less than 5. So we are just going to drop all of this stuff. And this is our final number. It's a negative 0.97 or negative 97 cents. So if I go back to to that question, that's what R is going to be. R equals a negative 0.97. That's it. That, and it's rounded to the nearest 100. Now it says state what the correlation indicates. And you would say, well, let me clear this. So looking at this, that would be about here, negative 0.97. So it's over here. It's close to a $-. So this is going to be very strong. So that's what we would say. We would say, well, that indicates a strong negative relationship. So you would say a strong negative relationship. And if you want to say, if you really want to be clear, you can say, look, doesn't it make sense? The more classes, the more missed classes you have, the lower your score is going to be. So the more classes that you miss, the lower your score is going to be, because you're missing a lot of the stuff that you need to learn. So the more classes you miss, the lower your score is going to be. And the less classes you miss, the higher your score is going to be. So again, it's a negative correlation. The variables work in opposite directions. I hope that's clear. I hope you guys understand this is what you need to be able to do for the exam. My exam, this is also what you need to do at the end of the year. Correlation coefficient, once you've entered it into the spreadsheet, you just have to go and create the equation, and then you're going to have to be able to round. The rounding is the most important thing. So if I do this correctly with the rounding, that's 2 points. If I come up with the correlation coefficient, round it, that's 1 point. And then if I indicate whether it's strong, negative, positive, moderate, weak, that'll be another point. This is a 4-point question. This is how you get all 4 points. All right, guys, I hope that this has been helpful. If you still are confused about anything, you need to come see me. All right, I'm going to end this because this is definitely longer than I wanted it to be, but I hope that this has been helpful. So, bye.